D Live, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Hey, the Texans in the house. I fell asleep, but first I did hear on the Texans show some anti-propaganda and some David Icke, but then I fell asleep. Did hear on probably I needed to sleep, just saying. Just saying. Okay. 2 minutes. Hmm. 1 minute and 20 seconds. One minute to go. 1 minute. $35 seconds to go. Rev says 5x5. Thank you, Rev.
Welcome to the 9dNation.
בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים ואת הארץ.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Thousands of years later, it was Wednesday at 11 p.m. Central. Get your passport ready and be prepared to declare to the customs agents any edible plants or miscellaneous worldviews. You're now crossing into the nation with no denomination.
Welcome to what I call the nation with no denomination. This is, I think, episode 63. No, 64. And we have read Genesis chapter 1 through Genesis chapter 30. And the notes that I thought should be brought along are this. Do not breed with demons, or drink blood, or murder. Abraham had Isaac, who had Jacob, who went to Haran to get a cousin wife. On the way, he was touched by a vision of heaven and bought into the family religion and got 4 back-home wives, 2 of them his cousins, and had 12 sons and used advanced animal husbandry tech to get super rich. That's what we learned so far. All right. We learned that from reading this thing here. And next up is Genesis 31. Which I'm going to read. But first, let's say hello to some chat. The Texan is in. Before I fell asleep and slept for like 45 minutes, I was watching the Texans show, and he had David Icke recordings. And like, I think we would all say this. Some of what David Icke says, you're like, man, this is on point. And some of it, you're like, it's a little not on point. And then before that was some anti-propaganda films, the kind of which they did used to show us to keep us from falling for that communism, socialism. We used to have a little old thing in America called capitalism. You remember it? Does anybody remember capitalism? Rev, thank you. We're pushing those buttons. Sneezer, good to see you. If you notice, I'm not getting right down to business. It's because we supposedly, let me just check and see, due to lack of correct technology, we're giving a week off to co-host Black Yoda. So, kind of on point, kind of very lost. Turd in a punch bowl is David Icke, I guess? Turd in the punch bowl. Turd in the punch bowl. I'm not sure what that's... What is, in fact, the turd in the punch bowl. But I am sure there is one somewhere. Floating. We all float down here. So, somebody asked me whether we're doing all of chapter 31 or not. I have it all ready. And since we don't have a co-host, I might do the whole thing. Because I was going to do half. But then Black Yoda called and said, or texted and said, yeah, I'm not so much going to be there. I'm like, well, I could run the whole chapter. I really wasn't going to because it's long and it has lots of new words. I'm going to slightly tweak the format also. You know how I've been tweaking the format? I think you're going to like this. This format is now fully loaded with tweaks. I'll just show you. Permit me to show you. So let's strap in, crack open that Bible, and start on verse 31 of Genesis. Now Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what belonged to our father he has made all this. Talk about his riches. In that verse, all this wealth, but kabod, which comes from the word kabod. There is, usually it means honor. There's 200 examples of kabod in the Old Testament. Jacob saw the attitude of Laban, and behold, it was not friendly towards him, as, coming from the word timol, that's like how it used to be. So it's not as friendly as how it used to be. 23 examples in the Old Testament. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm showing the notes right there as we go. As Shilshom, which is the day before yesterday, comes from the word sheresh. So as before, as Shilshom. There's a sense of triad, even trident, in this word, sheresh. So kitmol shilshom means as before. The reason it's got a triad sense to it is it means You've got today, you've got yesterday, and you've got even before yesterday. That's 3 things you've got. You've got today, yesterday, and what led up to yesterday. So there's this kind of strong time triad thing going on in the word shilshom, which comes from sheresh, which is a proper name, but that's from shalosh, which is a triad. So shilshom comes from shalosh, which means 3. So 3 time frames: today, yesterday, even before. So as formerly. So Jacob saw the attitude of Laban, and behold, it was not like it was friendly. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to his flock in the field, and said to them, I see your father's attitude that's not friendly toward me as formerly, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has hathaled me. He's deceived, or it can mean mock. So treated with, disrespect, really. 10 examples in the Old Testament. Your father has cheated me and halaf my wages. He changed my wages. There's a sense of evolving here. There's 28 examples of halaf in the Old Testament. He's changed my wages 10. 10 whats? 10 monets, which is 10 counts. Comes from the word manah, which is to count. So it's 10 countings. However, God did not allow him to hurt me. If he spoke thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth speckled. And if he spoke thus, the stripes shall be wages, then all the flock brought forth striped. Now, quick side note. He knew he had a science to impact this, so, he's saying God did it, but he also took actions towards it. But anyway, thus God has taken away your father's livestock, and natsal, that's to forcefully deliver. Well, to deliver, 213 examples of the Old Testament, can mean a forceful delivery, like a yoinking, like a joink, like a snatching away from danger. God has taken away your livestock and delivered them to me. And it came about at the time when the flock were mating that I lifted up my eyes and I saw in a dream, and behold, atud, that's goats. 29 examples in the Old Testament. These male goats that were mating were spotted, or barod, which comes from barad, which is hail. There's only 4 examples in the Old Testament, but it's basically frozen water falling from the sky. Male goats were striped, speckled, and mottled. This is the dream, remember. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift up now your eyes and see that all the male goats which are mating are striped, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is going to do to you, has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you, Mashach, anointed. Remember, he anointed that pillar. 69 examples of Mashach in the Old Testament. I'm the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar. It just sounds... I just read that, and I'm like, is that a euphemism? Sorry. That just hit my mind. Where you made a vow to me. Now arise, leave this land, and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah said to him, do we still have any portion or nachala, or inheritance, in our father's house? 223 examples of nachala in the Old Testament. Inheritance. Do we have any portion or inheritance? Are we not recognized by him as nokrayi, or foreigners? I really don't know how to pronounce that one. 46 examples in the Old Testament. For he has sold us, and he has entirely consumed our purchase price. Like we watched him just squander the money. Surely all the osher, or riches, 37 examples in the Old Testament. Surely all the wealth which God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now then, do whatever God has said to you. So they only needed one sales pitch, and they're like, yeah, I can see that. Sure. So Rachel and Leah, who normally argue with each other and bargain with each other who gets to do Jacob, are like, we agree. So I'm choosing these words to tell you as if we've never seen them in the first 30 chapters, by the way. So then Jacob arose and put his children and his wives upon camels, and he nahak. I had to look at study light on this one. He drove his livestock. Hard to pin this one down. It's like a driving light that could lead a carriage, maybe? It's really weird. But he did something away, scooted away all of his livestock, and all his kaneon, or possessions, which comes from kana, or stuff that you buy. 10 examples of kaneon in the Old Testament. All of his property, which he had gathered, his acquired livestock, which he had gathered in Padan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. When Laban had gone to gazaz, or shear, his flock, 15 examples of gazaz in the Old Testament. When he had gone to shear his flock, Rachel stole the trophaim, which is an idol. There's 15 examples in the Old Testament. It's pretty much like a family heirloom idol, the one you keep, grandma's famous statue or something like that. So Rachel stole the household idols that were her father's. And Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by blii. This is an interesting word. Not. It's a negation, but it's a flexible word, and it's a lack of meaning. He withheld the reasoning. He didn't explain to Laban how he felt. He just took away in the middle of the night. It can mean use, like what's the use? Or it can mean aged out so that it no longer has a use. So he did not explain or even alert Laban that he was fleeing. So he fled with all he had, and he arose and crossed the Euphrates River, and he set his face towards the hill country of Gilead. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, then he took his kinsman with him and pursued him a distance of 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. So I'm going to pause. This is almost the middle point of the chapter because my notes had already had this. So we know from Genesis 1 through 30 and a half of 31, don't breed with demons, don't drink blood or murder. Abraham had Isaac, who had Jacob, who went to Haran, got a cousin wife. On the way, he was touched by a vision of heaven and bought into the family religion and got 4 back-home wives, 2 of them his cousins, and had 12 sons, and used advanced animal husbandry tech to get super rich. So rich that Jacob had to sneak his mini nation out at like 2 in the morning. Don't wake up, Dad. Don't wake up, Granddad. Start up the camels. All right. We'll skip the study questions because what I was going to do is spend another 5 minutes prepping us for study and then go into discussion with Black Yoda. But, man, this new format goes super fast, doesn't it? Let me keep going, and then we'll have everything all in one place. Just Jim with the 111 gold pills.
Looky, looky, here comes Cookie, walking down the street. Looky, looky, I call him Cookie, 'cause he's sweet. Ooh, looky, looky, here comes Cookie, what a lucky brain. Looky, looky, I call him Cookie, 'cause he takes a cane.
Thank you for that, Just Jim. Just One is in the house. Oh, the reptilians. Yeah, for sure. Rev. No distractions. And Rev says, I have a thing for you in DMs. Well, I have a thing for you too. No, I'm sorry. Just One says, good evening. Tap the RP. Thanks for that reminder. That's good point. Red Pill lets us know that we've been red pilled, we're passing it around. Oh, yeah. Don't bogart that thing. All right, let's check out Padan Aram from Pithagi. Let's see what's going on. What's going down? Let's check it out. Padan Aram. Nice locator. Oh, this is that website. This thing is badass. Yeah, love this website. This website is it's just got it all. And it lets you kind of piece it together and shows you where the debates are, where they've been, and how they're going. And it's all visually graphic just right there. So that's kind of a big possible area, but kind of to the east like we thought, right? From where we was. Hola. All right. Commander Sloan is in the house. Oh. That weird emergency alert system. You know, that emergency alert system needs to be taken over by a double secret reverse negative cabal that's got our best intentions at heart and wants to free us from the original cabal. Could I be talking about the team, the hats, the white hats? Maybe. The Eye of Ra. Yeah, it does have that look. Miss 320 hit the red pill. Thank you. And is out of here. Taking a nap. Curled up in a blanket. Thanks for being here. I want to do that too, Miss 320. We're in football season, which is a beautiful season, but I lose about, realistically, an hour and a half of sleep every night. Oh well. It's a lot of dedication when your kid's in football. Let me tell you something. The kiddo, he's known for the last year and a half that he likes football, and he's been pursuing it. And he's slowly been revealing what his interest is. And he's been accurate all along. But when they got full pads on today, and the coaches have to remind the 8th graders, so they have to teach the 7th graders how to smash into each other. Now they have to remind the 8th graders what they learned last year. If you got to hit or you're going to be hit. And he's a defensive lineman, a nose guard. And his approach is he likes to kind of just plow forward and shove the O-line back. Which, if you're big enough and you've got enough, I don't know. I'm not a football expert, but that seems to be his move. So, run stuffing kind of thing. And that's the part of practice that he just lit up on this morning. I get to watch the whole practice all the time. I'm quite spoiled. I'm spoiled. Don't let me tell you I'm not. All right. All right, back to. Now, Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken away all that belonged to our father and built a... Wait, am I in the right... No, sorry, we just read that. God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream of the night and said to him, be careful that do you not speak to Jacob, either good or bad. So Laban, that's interesting. We'll come back to that, right? But just keep that in mind. That Laban's pursuing Jacob and God intercedes and says, do not judge just yet. Don't tell Jacob what happened. And watch how smart Laban is. Because we could have had a civil war here. I mean, these are two huge proto-nations, realistically. If you're Leon left, that work. If you're Leon let, that works. Bulldozer, right? I mean, I'm putting him up on a pedestal, right? I'm saying he's got all that. It's still 8th graders. They've graduated from what Coach was calling. Coach was telling the parents a week ago. He's like, the new parents. He's like, listen, 7th grade B team is like pillows. Twink, twink. He told a whole auditorium full of parents that. Yes, Sloan says, I am blessed. Yes, absolutely. G. Ross, you are blessed. Queen Peckerwood, son was a lineman, is a great football player. I'm just saying, in his own milieu, and I tell him, look, you're competing against yourself. You want to be better every day compared to yourself yesterday. I got that from Owen Benjamin the other day. He's like on point with that. You want the other guy to try his best so that you're up against the best competition you can get. And what you're essentially doing is you're out on the field with people who are all, you're competing with them as a glob, but you're really competing. Oh, what the heck? That's literally, that better not be my work phone, but I think it's just telling me about the warning. Let me see. You're the... Anyway, doesn't seem that big of a deal. Not now. All right, whatever. Can't even read it. So anyway, Laban, Nasak. There's 50 examples of that. It's overtake. So Laban caught up with Jacob. Now Jacob had tch or frp or pank. That's the word taka. 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 So you can hear he's hammering his tent stakes down. Taka. 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 Laban had pitched his tent. There's 70 examples of that word, taka, in the Old Testament. In the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen camped in the hill country of Gilead. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword?" You know, he's technically right, but that is a little hyperbolic. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me, and did not tell me so that I might have sent you away with simcha, or gladness, or joy? 93 examples of the Old Testament. And with songs, or shayir, which comes from shir, 91 examples of song, which comes from the word to sing. Sent you away with joy and songs, and with timbrel and lyre, or toph, tambourine, 17 examples in the Old Testament, or lyre. Thinking about the pre-flood world, we were called out timbrels and lyres. That's percussion and guitar. So you got drums and guitars. And did not natash, or allow, me to kiss my sons and my Rachel, which means sheeps or daughters. Sounds just like Rachel's name, doesn't it? Her name comes from that. So anyway, natash, that's abandoned or neglect, 40 examples in the Old Testament. So you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters, or my little sheepies. In case we didn't see the pattern here, I think I talked about it last week. Hang on, let me let the dog out. God. Unending need to go outside, this freak. I mean, I don't begrudge her. It's just like, why during the show? Ladies and gentlemen, you are in an informational fifth generational warfare. Here's how you know. We don't even think about it, but clearly in an information shop that is ragtag. As you can see, I have to move the green screen to let the dog out the house. All right. So the pattern here, we talked about this last week, I think. Just like the Tower of Babel, the drones are making bricks. You know, the replaceable cogs in the machine are making cogs in the machine. Here, we bred the sheep. But the sheep are named Rachel. She's part of the breeding program. Think Slilaxu in Dune. So you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you've done, or kakal, played the fool on me. You've done foolishly. You've been a fool. 8 examples of fool. Kakal. It's in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful, not to speak either good or bad to Jacob. So he straight up tells Jacob, God's making me not do this. Now you have indeed gone away because you, verse 30, kakaf, pine. You pine. It's in Study Light, we see these 6 examples in the Old Testament of this word trend towards like a gold, silver yearning, like the way you yearn for gold. You longed greatly for your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? So what he's doing is he's not accusing, he's asking. He's like, you're evil, you hate me. He's not saying that. He's like, why did you flee? Why did you not tell me? Why did you deprive? Why did you take my idols as well? Then Jacob replied to Laban, because I was afraid, for I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. The one with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself. Because Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Isn't that creepy? I don't remember if this is in my study questions. Whip it good. Yeah, that is a whip it, the Texan. Guys, I gotta catch up with the stickers. These are so good. Broke Track Mountain, classic. All right, we got a sticker yoink. If you're confused about gender, try milking a bull. You'll learn real quick. That's kind of on topic anyway, because we've been breeding the sheeps, breeding the humans. Love that picture of Zoso, and I was so happy to see Zoso back in his studio broadcasting after the community had been, emotionally involved, trying to help him out financially, and just watching him get home. It was a glory to see him actually home. He's never met that man before in his life. That's funny. Deep fake. Yeah, you can't prove anything these days. Thank you all. Okay. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent because he had permission, and into the tent of the 2 maids, but he did not find them. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent, and Rachel had taken the household idols and put them in the camel's saddle. The word here could mean cabinet, 16 examples in the Old Testament, car. And she had sat on them. And Laban felt through all the tent but didn't find them. She said to her father, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is upon me. Now she knew that there were strict rules. You don't go near that monthly scenario. So he searched Chafas, finding something hidden or disguised, 23 examples in the Old Testament. He searched but did not find the household idols. Then Jacob became angry. Note, now Rachel had lived with him for at least 14 years. His religion might have rubbed off on her a little, but not enough that she wouldn't go steal family idols on the way out of town. Because remember, his dad, or his granddad, Abraham, had given up the idol-making business that Terah in Haran had done. We have lots of documentation of that. So they were really good at making family idols, which makes sense that Laban wouldn't have them because he's back from the east, So Jacob became angry and contended with Laban. And Jacob said to Laban, what is my pesha, or transgression? It's like somebody done somebody wrong. There's 93 examples of that word in the Old Testament. What's my pesha, or transgression? What is my sin that you have dalak, or hotly pursued me? It's like chasing like fire, 9 examples in the Old Testament. What's my sin that you have dalak, hotly pursued me? Though you have felt through all my goods, what have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, and they may decide between us two. These 20 years I've been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten the rams of your flocks. That which was trephod, torn of beasts, ripped from the animal. It's from a word teraf, which is like torn food from the animal. There's only 9 examples of trephod, but it's pretty straightforward. That which was torn of beasts I did not bring to you. I bore that loss myself. So they're not allowed to eat that, right? So he just he ate that loss. You bakash, you required it of my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Bakash, there's seek, 225 examples. So you sought from my hand, the wages. Thus I was by day, choreb, or desolation, comes from chereb, a sword. So somehow the hot pursuit, or that sweaty sun of the day, is also like a knife. I don't quite see that, but there's 17 examples of that word being used, and it is used both ways. So by day the heat consumed me, and the kerach, frost, by night. That word kerach, that's cold or ice, from karach, that's to make bald. So I could see that, like the grass just disappears. There's only 7 examples in the Old Testament, but here in context, you could see it's like the cutting heat by day and the emboldening frost by night. And my sleep, my nadad, 28 examples of nadad in the Old Testament. My sleep, nadad, fled from my eyes. Sorry, nadad doesn't mean sleep, it means fled. These 20 years I've been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father and the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, pachad, the dread, the 49 uses in the Old Testament, had lule, that means not, it means accept. It comes from lu, which means the use. If my lule, if the fear of Isaac had lule been for me, had not been for me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed, or rekam. It's like vague. You'd sent me away with nothing. God has seen my affliction and the ikia, the day labor, toil of my hands. So he rendered judgment last night. Then Laban replied to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day to these my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? So now come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness, an ed, the Hebrew word ed, to 69 examples in the Old Testament, between you and me. Then Jacob took a stone, set it up as a pillar. Jacob said to his kinsman, lakat, 37 examples of that word. It means to gather. Lakat some stones. Gather some stones. So they took some stones and made a gal, or a heap. Can mean wave also. 34 examples in the Bible. They made a gal, or a heap. And they ate there by the heap. Now Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galid, or Galeed. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me this day. So they basically signed a contract, or a treaty, or a border agreement. Therefore it was named Galid and Mizpah. For he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent one from the other. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is. So this Laban knows a little bit how God works. He's telling Jacob how it's going to be. God is witness, is safa. He's a watchman. 38 examples in the Bible of that word. God's a witness between you and me. And Laban said to Jacob, behold, this heap, and behold the pillar which I've set, or yara. That's like to shoot with an arrow. So I've precisely placed this thing between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness that I will not pass by this heap to you for harm, and you will not pass by this heap and this pillar to me for harm. So this is the green line. This is the no man's land. This is the border. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor and the God of their father judge between us. So I didn't even notice this. There's a through line to the God of Nahor and the God of Abraham. Interesting perspective from Laban. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, meaning God. Then Jacob zabach a zebach. He zabached a zebach. That's taking a ritual sacrifice. 134 examples of zabach, 162 examples of zebach. So he slit like a goat's throat on the mountain ritually, and called his kinsmen to the meal, and they ate the meal and spent the night on the mountain. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned to his place. And I'll summarize that next week, but you got the basic idea. And what I'm going to do is take a little break, but we're going to play this video of the Hebrew. This guy reads it better than I ever could. So let's get the Hebrew going here. Copy link. I'm going to take a drink, a little water, and let this thing, I'd like to hear it in the Hebrew, right? It would be nice, right? Let's do it. "10 minutes. It's a long chapter.
פרק ל"א. וישמע את דברי בני לבן לאמור, לקח יעקב את כל אשר לאבינו, ומאשר לאבינו עשה את כל הכבוד הזה. וירא יעקב את פני לבן, והנה איננו עמו כתמול שלשום. ויאמר אדוני אל יעקב, שוב אל ארץ אבותיך ולמולדתך, ואהיה עמך. וישלח יעקב, ויקרא לרחל וללאה השדה אל צונו. ויאמר להן, רואה אנוכי את פני אביכן, כי איננו אלי כתמול שלשום, ואלוהי אבי היה עמדי. ואתנה ידעתן, כי בכל כוחי עבדתי את אביכן, ואביכן התל בי, והחליף את משכורתי 10 מונים, ולא נתנו אלוהים להרע עמדי. אם כה יאמר נקודים יהיה שכריך, וילדו כל הצאן נקודים, ואם כה יאמר עקודים יהיה שכריך, וילדו כל הצאן עקודים, ויצל אלוהים את מקנה אביכם, וייתן לי. ויהי בעת יחם הצאן, ואשא עיני, וארא בחלום, והנה העתודים העולים על הצאן, עקודים נקודים וברודים. ויאמר אלי מלאך האלוהים בחלום, יעקב, ואומר הנני. ויאמר, שא נא עיניך וראה כל העתודים העולים על הצאן, עקודים נקודים וברודים, כי ראיתי את כל אשר לבן עושה לך. אנוכי האל בית אל, אשר משכת שם מצבה, אשר נדרת לי שם נדר. עתה קום צא מן הארץ הזאת, ושוב אל ארץ מולדתך. ותען רחל ולאה, ותאמרנה לו, העוד לנו חלק ונחלה בבית אבינו? הלא נוכריות נחשבנו לו, כי מכרנו, ויאכל גם אכול את כספנו. כי כל העושר אשר הציל אלוהים מאבינו, לנו הוא ולבנינו, ועתה כל אשר אמר אלוהים אליך עשה. ויקום יעקב ויישא את בניו ואת נשיו על הגמלים, וינהג את כל מקנהו ואת כל רכושו אשר רכש, מקנה קניינו אשר רכש בפדן ארם, לבוא אל יצחק אביו ארצה כנען. ולבן הלך לגזוז את צונו, ותגנוב רחל את הטרפים אשר לאביה. ויגנוב יעקב את לב לבן הארמי, על בלי הגיד לו כי בורח הוא. ויברח הוא וכל אשר לו, ויקום ויעבור את הנהר, וישם את פניו הר הגלעד. ויוגד ללבן ביום השלישי, כי ברח יעקב. ויקח את אחיו עמו, וירדוף אחריו דרך 7 ימים, וידבק אותו בהר הגלעד. ויבוא אלוהים אל לבן הארמי בחלום הלילה, ויאמר לו, הישמר לך פן תדבר עם יעקב מטוב עד רע. וישג לבן את יעקב, ויעקב תקע את אוהלו בהר, ולבן תקע את אחיו בהר הגלעד. ויאמר לבן ליעקב, מה עשית ותגנוב את לבבי, ותנהג את בנותי כשבויות חרב? למה נחבאת לברוח ותגנוב אותי, ולא הגדת לי, ואשלחך בשמחה ובשירים בטוב ובכינור? ולא נטשתני לנשק לבני ולבנותי, עתה השכלת עשו. יש לאל ידי לעשות עמכם רע, ואלוהי אביכם אמש אמר אלי לאמור, הישמר לך מדבר עם יעקב מטוב עד רע. ועתה הלוך הלכת, כי נחשפת לבית אביך, למה גנבת את אלוהי? ויען יעקב ויאמר ללבן, כי יראתי, כי אמרתי פן תגזול את בנותיך מעמי. עם אשר תמצא את אלוהיך לא יחיה נגד אחינו, הכר לך מה עמדי וקח לך. ולא ידע יעקב כי רחל גנבתם. ויבוא לבן באוהל יעקב ובאוהל לאה ובאוהל שתי האמהות, ולא מצא. ויצא מאוהל לאה ויבוא באוהל רחל. ורחל לקחה את הטרפים ותשימם בחר הגמל ותשב עליהם. וימשש לבן את כל האוהל ולא מצא. ותאמר אל אביה, אל יחר בעיני אדוני, כי לא אוכל לקום מפניך, כי דרך נשים לי. ויחפש ולא מצא את הטרפים. וייחר ליעקב, וירב בלבן. ויען יעקב ויאמר ללבן, מה פשעי, מה חטאתי, כי דלקת אחרי? כי מיששת את כל כלי. מה מצאת מכל כלי ביתך? שים כה נגד אחי ואחיך, ויוכיחו בין שנינו. זה 20 שנה אנוכי עמך, רחליך ועזיך לא שיקלו, ואלי צונך לא אכלתי. טרפה לא הבאתי אליך, אנוכי אחתנה, מידי תבקשנה. גנובתי יום וגנובתי לילה. הייתי ביום, אכלני חורב וקרח בלילה, ותדד שנתי מעיני. זה לי 20 שנה בביתך עבדתיך, 14 שנה בשתי בנותיך, ו6 שנים בצונך, ותחלף את משכורתי 10 מונים. לולא אלוהי אבי אלוהי אברהם, ופחד יצחק היה לי, כי עתה רקם שילחתני, את עוני ואת יגיע כפי ראה אלוהים, ויוכח אמש. ויען לבן ויאמר אל יעקב, הבנות בנותי והבנים בני והצאן צאני, וכל אשר אתה רואה לי הוא, ולבנותי מה אעשה לאלה היום, או לבניהן אשר ילדו. ועתה לך נכרתה ברית אני ואתה, והיה לעד ביני וביניך. ויקח יעקב אבן, וירימיה מצבה. ויאמר יעקב לאחיו, לקטו אבנים. ויקחו אבנים ויעשו גל, ויאכלו שם על הגל. ויקרא לו לבן, יגר סהדותה, ויעקב קרא לו גל עד. ויאמר לבן, הגל הזה עד ביני ובינך היום, על כן קרא שמו גל עד. והמצפה אשר אמר, ייצף אדוני ביני ובינך, כי נסתר איש מרעהו. אם תענה את בנותי, ואם תיקח נשים על בנותי, אין איש עמנו, ראה אלוהים עד ביני וביניך. ויאמר לבן ליעקב, הנה הגל הזה והנה המצבה, אשר יריתי ביני וביניך. עד הגל הזה ועדה המצבה, אם אני לא אעבור אליך את הגל הזה, ואם אתה לא תעבור אליי את הגל הזה ואת המצבה הזאת לרעה. אלוהי אברהם ואלוהי נחור ישפטו בינינו, אלוהי אביהם, וישבע יעקב בפחד אביו יצחק. ויזבח יעקב זבח בהר, ויקרא לאחיו לאכול לחם, ויאכלו לחם, וילינו בהר.
There we go. You heard it from the guy himself, that dude, probably a rabbi. You know, it is a good bio break time. I kind of encouraged that almost, I think. That one was a long one. That's a long chapter. Queen Peckerwood, I totally understand. If you read the Hebrew, you start to pick up words like vayomer, that's to utter or to say. And then I pick up the names. But yeah, no, I'm still trying to learn this language. It's a long trek. And yeah, what's the loogie count there? The Texan is like shim dada chic or shim dade chic. Extra wax on the car wash, please. The fuck? Salty Nuts, what's up? That was me being lazy and letting the YouTube read the Hebrew for me of chapter 31 of Genesis. Nice to see you in the house, Salty Nuts. It's been quite a pleasure to see you streaming, and you know, you had kind of a bit of a reduction in streaming for a while, and a lot of times your streaming is in the day, like the earlier part of the day. And let me just break from the show for a second and tell the Foxhole family here. Some people know this, but about 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, the literal actual boss from hell, and I don't say that lightly, like just a horrible, left the company and had been on me for like a year and a half. So even just listening with an earbud, you know, while doing my work, which I used to be able to do, it's like, but right when I was starting to go back, you were getting back into it, so it really worked out. So I've been catching a lot of your streams, Salty Nuts. Original gangster from my viewpoint. Like, I don't know, you probably like in the first. Some people are in the first 10 channels ever. I'm guessing you were like, I came over to the Foxhole a little bit late, so I don't know those first 20, 25. I don't know the order. But anyway, so my study questions. Oh, let me make a Jitsi link, because at this point we do not have a co-host tonight. That's extremely rare, as you know. That's only like once or twice a year that happens where Black Yoda can't join. But he told me in advance, you know, so that there's nothing wrong. It's just he's got tech issues. He's got a surprise video that we can all take a peek at, you know, because he wanted to be here, but he sent me some content, so we can get into that. But let me create a Jitsi, and man, Jitsi, some people can't use this thing. I saw that hardcore today. I was doing a test run with a friend, and it don't work. So anyway, let me get it's bedtime. Salty Nuts, we will see you in the mañana. Thanks for swinging by. I mean, that's like a celebrity sighting, Salty Nuts. I'm not trying to put you, I know you're probably uncomfortable to hear that. You know, just as I get to know all the Foxholers, I kind of go through that phase where I gush a little. I'm just like, sorry, it's going to happen. You know, you guys were the ones that laid down, you know, the Texan, the Black Yoda. There's people that I've gotten to know that had laid down the groundwork before I even got here. You know, I knew about it. I was lurking a lot, but I wasn't even looking at the chats. And I only came over here when Craig was booted off of YouTube. That was like what shoved me over. I knew about it, and even then I treated it like just a streaming service until I realized one day, I looked at the chat and I'm like, oh, this stuff is fantastic. Anyway. Salty nuts. Love the sticker. That's awesome. Okay, so what was I doing? Okay, so... Oh, let me get the link. I barely know what I'm doing here. Let's turn on the filter. Chroma key, shroma key. That's from an old Saturday Night Live. Anyone is welcome to comment because I'm going to bring out the study questions. There's about 6. They're not that deep. I don't know if my prep was just weak or what, but that's the link for anybody who feels like chatting about what we read or anything vaguely related or completely unrelated. You know how this thing goes. So anyway, is there like a pattern here? Remember how Abraham and Lot had to spread out? So now Jacob has to kind of spread out from uncle. So that was uncle, nephew, that Abraham and Lot had to kind of put a border. These Haranians, they go in to this area of Egypt and Canaan, and then they get kind of loggerheads with the locals, but even have to split among themselves. I mean, it's exponential growth. You can see that in the text. But it's also like, I don't know. Is it that they just kind of need elbow room? Anyway. Somebody's in the house. Hey, Salty called in. Nice.
Hey, buddy.
We see you and we hear you.
Cool. I'm just about ready for bed. I'm eating my bowl of cereal. Crashing out.
That prompts 2 questions in my mind immediately. Do you do it dry or with milk?
Who the fuck eats cereal without milk?
That's fair. That's totally fair. And may I ask the cereal of choice today?
Some kind of oat brand shit.
Nice.
Whatever works, right?
Yep.
At least it ain't Fruity Loops.
Right. Yeah, that stuff is really sweet and sugary.
Or that Trix, silly faggot, dicks are for chicks.
Right.
Who's Rev?
Hey, Rev just joined us. How's it going, Revenge? Yeah, normally on Wednesdays we have Black Yoda, but he had a rare technical issue tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's kind of our Wednesday co-host for about the last 50 weeks, probably, maybe more.
I was gonna run a little contest, and that's to see how long, once I get like, I don't know, maybe 20 people watching, because like you said, I lost some viewers, so. And then, surprise, they don't know about it, right? So walk with me down this road. And throw out the Jitsi link to both Black Yoda and Uncle Krusty, and we'll let them go and see how long my viewers stay. Because those two simply don't know how to shut the fuck up.
That's hilarious.
I like them both, and they know that.
Yeah. Well, when I watch Uncle Krusty, it's usually that Uncle Krusty can stream apparently 18 hours in a row from what I've noticed.
Yeah, but he doesn't, he streams a different type of show for a specific reason, and I respect
Exactly.
that. When I get him on my show, though, man, them gums are flapping.
Nice.
And then him and Black Yoda would be like, Satan meets the Grinch or something like that. Just this horrible pairing that would knock everybody out. They'd be like, I can't watch no more of this.
You're reminding me of a time this is like probably almost 38 years ago. I think one of my younger siblings had those Furbies, those little talking gremlin-looking dolls, and they had another one, and I set them pointed at each other, and they just kept talking for hours. Oh, yeah, come pet me. Oh, I don't know your name. Because they kept triggering each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were that. If you remember, I don't know if you remember those toys, but we got wind that if you were like CIA or FBI, you couldn't have those toys in your house with your kids because they were potentially spy devices.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a form of disclosure back before I knew that that's what that kind of news story was.
Crazy. And then, now they're just real flagrant about it. Now they come out with this Hasbro female doll that's got a button right on her vagina that you push it and it goes, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Right. I have not seen Barben or Heimer. Have you seen either of those? Have you? I doubt that you'd be interested in those, but I'm curious.
Mm-mm.
You know, Barbie movie and Oppenheimer.
So I downloaded, or full disclosure, I stole a bunch of TV series, Fallen Skies, Jericho, Revolution. I think 3 others that fall along the post-apocalyptic bullshit scenario where if you watch enough of them, you'll think that, wow, should that ever happen, I'm going to have to fight everybody. Because that's the narrative. That's not that people are decent and all you got to do is jump in line and blend in and do your part, you know, but they want you like full on fucking Rambo defense style.
Right.
So if you watch it with your goggles on, you can avoid seeing all the current woke bullshit. Because, I mean, out of all the platforms and all the streaming services you got, whether it's Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, all that other garbage. Oh, my God.
So I hopped in front into the box. You know, there's a little door over here. You can just walk in. I couldn't resist.
That's cool.
Yeah. And my kid was like, why are you doing that? I'm like, how often? You know how much work it would take to build that prop? Just hop in. And he wouldn't do it.
You didn't actually go watch it, did you?
No. It was just we were going to go see, this was to see Haunted Mansion.
You should have done a little faggy pose, you know,
That's
like you're
true.
crimping your hair or something. Just to make it fit in with the pink Barbie box.
Yep. I do realize that the strategically placed flaccid object here could be.
No, you look like you're going to grab a hammer and some 2x4s and nails and build something. You don't
Yeah.
look like one of those woke dudes.
Right. I've heard good things about Revolution.
Do you remember that State Farm commercial where the wife comes down the stairs? Meanwhile, the guy's talking on the phone and he's like, yeah, oh, that'd be cool to do that. Could you really do that? Oh, God, I'd love, oh, that would be great. And she thinks that he's talking to some chick. And he's like, no, that's Jake from State Farm. And, you know, you remember that commercial where it's like, well, he's a guy, so yeah.
Right. Right. Nowadays, that wouldn't play the same way.
And then they showed a picture later in another commercial of this white dude. And he's like, what are you wearing? He's like, khakis, you know?
Yeah. I do remember that.
They replaced him with a black guy. That's when shit's really started on the woke end. Like, nope, you're ready him for a black guy that nobody's going to like because they know we just did this.
Right. Yeah, we're thinking about seeing Blue Beetle, but you mentioned woke. I've heard that it's got a little bit of wokeness. I don't know. The preview doesn't look too bad. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was pretty good, by the way.
I like on one of these things on Revolution, because this was done in like 2007.
Yeah.
But one of the passcodes or the safe word or the magic words to let somebody know that you're part of a certain militia and that you're safe is by saying a certain phrase. And the phrase was, I shit you not, he was in a library, so he says, I'd like to get a biography of Joe Biden. Not even joking you. 2007.
Wow.
I'm looking for a biography of Joe Biden. Not even kidding. You know, you're still sharing the Barrett Barbie picture.
I can stop sharing the Barbie picture. Yeah, 2007. I don't think they had. I'm trying to think of the timing. The primary wasn't underway yet.
He's been in political service for 372 years. Is that the number he said?
Yeah, I think before he helped. He was against the Constitution when it was being written.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like most recently, Joe, Mr. President, what do you have to say on the fires in Maui? No comment. Wow.
Yeah.
No comment. I'm off to go spend some more vacation time while you guys cough up some more tax dollars for Ukraine.
Right. And he's going to let $700 per household loose for the affected houses in Maui now.
Oh, yeah, that ought to fix them right out.
Right. Well, so I've been calling it Maui Dew, like a can of Maui Dew, because
I saw that and I'm not buying it. There's
a
lot of cherry picking going on in today's world where they're drawing connections to things that just don't, it's an obvious name for a soda drink.
Right.
Maui Explosion. It's what about Hawaiian Punch? I mean, why didn't they go get that one?
Right.
I mean,
Hawaiian Punch, that's a good one.
So no, I think they're grasping the straws on there and sending the Q-tards down a loop. And I don't know. I'm not putting any. Not to say that I know better. I don't, but I just can't put any weight into that soda can thing. I think direct energy weapons, yeah. I think it's a land grab, yeah. I think they better all leave or they're all going to be trapped in 15-minute cities sooner than they think.
Right. Well, as a territory, a small island isolated in the middle of the Pacific is easier to do social experiments on, probably, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you shut down the flights, it's all for the taking. Yeah, that's right. That's when I hope Russia takes it out, like blanket, covered glass fucking island. Got all the pricks in one spot. Let's do it.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I had kind of set to myself maybe one day I would see Hawaii, but now I'd be nervous to be there just because I might be there the wrong week.
Has there been any movement on whether or not they're going to try Trump in Virginia, or are they going to keep it in Wokeville?
Today on Season Pixels, it looked like there was still a request to move it, but it hadn't been shaken out yet.
I think they're going to hold on pretty tight. Did you watch any of that Lindell erection stuff?
No, I was at work today or yesterday.
He basically had people from all the different states there to represent or to speak regarding the elections and what is the hopeful news that they can share on a per state basis. But the cool thing is he made these scorecards, each state having their own, and it was set with different things. Like one column was paper ballots only, and then one column was same day voter, 1 day voting, and all this other stuff like no drop boxes. And so I'm looking at there was about 11 different items per card. I can't remember them all, but they're all very, very important. And so they were scored from the years 2016, 2020, and then now. So 3 columns that ran down, and the 11 columns of different pieces of that to describe what the item was, and little check boxes in between. And what I saw was that every state but my own, which is Idaho, has progressively, since the steal of two, we knew there was corruption in 16, and then we knew it in 2020. Oh boy, did we. And so it's showing that in 2016, everything that every state had was really, really, good in comparison to the next one, which was worse. So meaning to say that while we've been worrying about these little shinies and this indictment and that hearing and that candidate and this transgender, while that was happening for those 4-6 years, they have whittled away at the laws for voting in each state. Out of all 50 got worse, except for Idaho. It just simply got better. Now, yeah, it got more. You can't fuck around with Idaho. Every time they've tried, when all the states around them say shit like, oh yeah, we're going to legalize medicinal marijuana, we're like, okay, we're going to ban it and we're going to increase the jail time. And we literally do that every time. And now Idaho is the most flocked to state out of all of them. Once they figured out DeSantis was a fucking moron, Florida stopped getting influx. Once they figured out Austin, Texas, and the border had its issues, and they were going to freeze, and their energy grid belongs to China. Once they figured out all that shit, you go to U-Haul, you go to Ryder, go to their webpage, and you'll see where they're heading. They're heading to here. So I'm buying me a bunch of more freedom fries, making my dog mad. I'll gear it up.
That's where Owen Benjamin planted. Owen Benjamin planted in Idaho a few years back.
Yeah, he did. He's 45 minutes northeast of me.
Yeah, nice. No one man is perfect and has all the answers, but that guy sure tries things out and shares his findings.
The one thing I would get advice from would be homesteading. All things homesteading.
Yeah.
I don't like his views on blanket coverage racist stuff. Because a person's a person until they prove otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always handled it. But I mean, I like my black jokes. I like my Jew jokes. They're all cool because I learned them as a kid when it was funny, when it was permitted, right?
Right.
And I don't like people thinking they can take that from me. But it's also inappropriate to say it in certain audiences.
Absolutely.
He's got a really good outlook on what religion does what religion believes this, what religion believes that. And I've always taken the stance of I don't have one. I have a faith, whether you want to call me spiritual or whatever, but I don't follow a specific religion. Perhaps there is one that is close to how I feel, but I'll never claim it.
Right.
Are you a Christian? No. Are you a Muslim? No.
Right.
I'm not in anything. I just have a relationship with some dude that probably doesn't like you.
Right.
Well, this has been fun, but yeah, that Owen Benjamin, he's got a lot of good stuff and some of it bad. But yeah. I bet if you were to sit down at a dinner table after Amy finished making all the dinner from that homegrown food, you probably never have a better experience sitting down eating food. Yeah. That hard work pays off right there. I got these 4 chickens, and today they did 4 eggs. They'll do 3 or 4 on any given day. And so now I've got 1, 2, 3 neighbors that I've given them to. And so I'm meeting and greeting and letting them know that, hey, should shit ever get wonky, I'm pretty impressed with the Second Amendment. I thoroughly enjoy it. And I got a really mean junkyard dog,
Yeah.
German Shepherd, taught him to kill, just forgot to teach him the part of who not to. So you got to be a little careful around him. But yeah, it's the community stuff is going pretty good.
So going back to what you said about the Lindell findings, that the rot has increased over the last 6 years.
Oh, in all states, while people were sidetracked or furious or panicked, whatever emotion got pounded into everybody, depending upon what source they were looking at, their little gimmies and gotchas. That's what happened. What happened was the legislation for voting got so loosey, so willy-nilly, just, oh man, this next one, if there is one, it is not going our way. Not going our way. I mean, and I think Owen Benjamin explained it first. You got a red party and you got a blue party, right? Okay. Well, since what was it, 37, when we became a corporation,
right?
Since then, you may as well change the word vote to opinion, because that's really all it is. It's an opinion. And the masters, if I ran a company, let's say I ran a company that was like Costco, and I owned 4 different Costcos, call it whatever, call it salty stores. And I had a couple hundred employees, and I would want to know, that Brad, the night manager that I just gave my promo to, I would want to know how other people feel about him. Yeah. So I'd run him a poll and I'd say, hey, do you think Brad's doing a good job as night manager, or would you like somebody else pick from the following names?
Right.
Okay. And so you get that, and you can now put your finger on the pulse of how to keep your servants satisfied while still doing what you pay them to do. And they're never going to leave you because of it, because you made them happy they think you're the representative when you're actually the overlord. You're the one holding the whip, and they think you're holding candy. And that's what you got to keep them thinking that. And that is pretty much what our voting system was turned into a very, very, very long time ago. And so people think, like Nixon. Take Nixon, for example. Trump was good friends with Nixon. So I think Trump might be the outsider on this case. But Nixon didn't do all that bad shit. He was framed. He was set up. He loved the country. He was going to do a great job. And because of that, they fucked him. Look what they did with JFK. Anybody that steps up to do the job that is for the people, if anybody's concerned for the people, they get fucking Arkansited, and that's just the way it's going to go.
Right. So I have 2 questions about that kind of. One is, when we look at that, I start to have to wonder if there's a wrestling kayfabe thing going on, and is Trump really in on it and super best friends with Clinton? You got to always model that, right?
Welcome to my world.
Right. I don't want to think that, and I usually don't, but I usually quote that I'm 2% versus 98%. I'm 98 pro Trump, but I always hold that little doubt.
They know him. They spent a week with him in a locked up room, and they know for a fact that he is on the side of the people. Or is he saying that, and is he performing small tasks along the way to prove it? And is he fighting, in a show, in a puppet show, screaming at the other side, swearing he's going to defend you? And this thing has done what? We've escalated. Right. Now we're to a precipice where we never thought we'd get, and here we are. And $5 a gallon. I mean, I could go down the line of what's 30 trillion off to Ukraine or whatever we got. Hawaii, you guys get blown up by our tax dollars that paid for that direct energy weapon. And then we want to send them more. And Joe Biden says, no. I mean, it's all right there. I mean, it
Right.
does make you wonder, is this not a good cop, bad cop scenario? I've had my head in that plate for so long. And I just thought, you know what, this isn't helping me out any.
No, it's not. Well, and that makes me think of now. This is going to sound kind of woo, and I do go pretty woo, but it also can be metaphorically useful. We've always just been wage slaves or some kind of slaves, and even it may not be that we're supposed to plumb gold out of the planet for Inky and Enlil, but that story really matches. Like, we're just doing what the controllers want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, when I say slave, don't put it in your head, back when you used to read things in school where a white guy was holding a whip on a black guy.
Right.
When I say slave, I think more of a pleased servant, happy servant. So you're happy to pay your taxes. And it's like, you can explain this, a third grader could run it down to you. See this dollar? I just earned it. I just earned it, and I spent $1.06 earning it. Okay, but I only got $1 now. I'm going to spend it, and I'm going to only get 94 cents value from it. And then the guy who's going to get it, he's got to pay also. So he's only going to be getting, 88 cents out of that 90 some odd, So it trickles down and down and down, and it don't take more than a few days for that dollar to be all eaten up, all of its value gone in circulation. Millions and millions of dollars per day are just vanishing in thin air, and people think that that's cool. That, where's the mystery there? I don't, what's your problem, Salty?
Right.
My problem is we just got to keep spinning the printer. Here's more. Here's more.
Well, there's been some rhetoric. I wish I could remember where I heard it.
That dollar. Those are our Jewish bankers, or Rothschild or JP Morgans, and hats like that.
There's been some rhetoric
they can fund these dues in Maui. They can fund Antifa. They can fund BLM. They can, all the blue tape on the grocery store lines to walk a certain direction and keep your 6 feet distance. There's no limit to what they can afford. Their only limit is time. That's it. And I think that's where we might win. Because if people wake up good enough and they opt out, like a Super Bowl, there's 2 teams there. All the tickets are sold. The stands are full. You go get your $17 popcorn and your $38 2 beers for you and the wife. You got your blue paint on and your, your team hat. Everybody's there to vote for one team or the other. Kind of like politics, one team or the other. If one day everybody says, no, I'm not going to go to that game, and they end up with maybe 40% of the stands filled, now we've won. Right. But until then, I can't imagine it. So Owen Benjamin Homesteading, approve.
Right. Yeah. Well,
approve.
I remember, and I like what you advised about how he goes a little extreme on trying to piss everyone off on race jokes.
He doesn't give 2 fucks, and I like that about him. But
yeah,
he can shove somebody out. It's just your choice to watch him. But he has really broken down something like one thing I learned from. I'll be right in there, baby. Is forgiveness. People think we got to forgive our trespassers. So let's say some dude rapes your wife or your daughter, and you're thinking, fuck no, I don't have to forgive that piece of shit. And it's never going to happen, but it has to, because it's a burden you now carry. So you're not forgiving them for them, but you're forgiving them for yourself so you can move on. So that having it spun that way made me understand it a little bit better. And judgment, people get that all wrong. You're like, don't you judge me. I'm like, well, I'm not a tranny and you are, and I've never been a tranny. I'm allowed to judge you. I've never committed the crime. Let's go to the Bible on that one with he who hath not carried the sin shall cast the first stone. Right? Something like that, something on those regards. Meaning to say, if you're not guilty of the crime or the infraction that you're judging, you're not. God doesn't have pussies. He's got warriors. You judge them. You call it out, and don't sit idly by. These people that are passive, they call them. They're proud of the word libertarian, and a libertarian standpoint is just, oh, you do you, boo. Man, I ever meet somebody says you do you, boo, I think I'm gonna knock his fucking teeth out, because that's where we're at right now. For sure.
Yeah, libertarian is not going to solve this voter fraud thing.
No, you call it out. You I went to go get some cigarettes from the smoke shop down the road. There's this transgender there, and I know he's trying to be polite. It was a he. It's now trying to be a she. With ace bandages taping up the boobies and stuff so that they can't see them. And it's like, and you still got all these fucking gross tattoos. You just sicken me with that huge Adam's apple, bigger than anybody's. And then you try and raise your voice. Right. So I didn't purchase nothing. I went home, I called the shop, and I told the manager that was there, I says, you hired that thing that, with the long hair and the pink little tank top shirt. Yeah. And because of that, me and my wife will never shop at that store again. Good choice. Have a fine day. Bye. And that was it. That's how I put my foot down. It's like, hit him in the wallet. And I'm going to tell my friends too. You want to go buy some smoke from a tranny? There you go.
Yeah, that's where you go. Yeah.
All right, I got to get out of here, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for stopping by.
Take care, guys.
All right, bye. There goes Salty Nuts. I think first ever call in to the G Ross channel. P Thaggy in the house. How you doing?
Hey, buddy.
Rev, if you can hear me, I did greet you when you came in. I guess you might have went to sleep. Sorry, we didn't converse with you. P Thaggy, what's new?
Well, so I have some notes from the scripture. I don't know if that's is that is that permitted? I don't know. Is that chapter is that book closed?
No, as a matter of fact, I was delighted to see your name, because what I could do is go back to, I think the call-ins began when I had asked a question, which was, it was more of a comment, but it's a pattern that we're seeing. Abraham gets super rich. Lot gets super rich. They're Haranians, or from that area that you showed on the map, by way of Haran. And then they have to kind of they're exponentially growing, and they have to split. They're like a cell mitosis.
No, that wasn't.
And then hey, Rev, and then Jacob has to do the same with his uncle, just like Lot had to. So there's a pattern going on here, and I don't know what my point is, but I'm just seeing the pattern.
Oh yeah, what's up, Rev?
Rev.
Yes, sir.
He's being polite. Okay, I think we should start scribbling down some notes to see if they connect.
Yeah.
Connecto is like the word of the week.
Nice.
I was on a show last night, just lurking, and same thing that Salty mentioned came up. Just too many people are too eager to make connectos. And I'm not to say that they aren't there, but you can get carried away with it pretty easily. So, but yeah, maybe we should scribble down some notes. The way we left it, we were commenting about the breeding, the wiggly stick, the wavy lines.
Yep.
Sort of the magic spell, like, woo, are we casting magic spells? Are we hypnotizing them with wiggly sticks? Or is this code for we're playing with the DNA?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Wow. Then you have the pattern that you just mentioned, the way that they go back to their native land to find a suitable bride,
Right.
and then trying to keep it in the family, let's say. Also, you still have a pattern which is easy to overlook if you're one of the faithful. God said to, God spoke to, and you're like, yeah, la 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 la. God says a lot of things in the Old Testament. But you got to remember, everybody. And he, like in this case, literally is speaking to Jacob once in a dream, and then another time it's unclear.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many people, can hear the voice of God? And I know there are Latter-day Saints and stuff, and people are going to say they can expel demons and stuff. But this, I think, has a little bit of a different flavor to it. It almost seems as if they are under his protection. That's why they flourish.
Yes.
That's why they live to be 120 something years old. So,
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the one other thing I wanted to point out is a very rare God appearance to Laban. He also gets
very rare.
direction. Yeah.
Because Laban seems like a bad guy, right? He pursues them down in hostility, accuses him falsely of stealing and being deceitful. You have to remember, Jacob himself is not the most forthright person. He's done his fair share of deceit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, he is the usurper. His name means that, right? The heel grabber.
The usurper? And
yeah, or the ankle biter.
Ankle biter?
Yep.
What
Duppy.
is it? Oh, Duppy's here. What's up, Dupp?
Yeah.
Hey,
I came to
Duppy.
say hello to Thaggy.
What's up, Dupp? And on that subject, what is it? The Wikipedia page says Laban's name translates to white. Let me think. Hold on. Where is it? White?
Yeah, like when you peel the bark off of the birch tree or whatever.
Yes. Okay. So
that even ties it in more. Rachel's named Lamb. He's named White. They're talking about speckled things. They're breeding humans. You just keep proving it to me over and over again.
well, and then I was going to get into the sacrifice. I found in the
Right.
Dead Sea Scrolls, at least later in the Temple period. It's called the Temple Scroll. They go into very minute detail how the sacrifice is performed.
Right.
And it's not surprising because we talked about it before. But yeah, the one thing that I caught in today's text, in today's scripture, was without blemish. You have to sacrifice these rams and these goats without blemish. They have to be perfect. Perfect. Like the perfect phone call. I've got the perfect ram for you.
Uncle Vonka's
You
in the
guys are
house.
screwed now.
Oh boy.
To say hi to
Bravo.
all of you. Hi. But it's
Hello, Frog.
Maggie.
Frog, did you catch the Salty Nuts drive-by?
At the very tail end.
I didn't catch it at all. You want to summarize real quick?
Talked a little bit about the kind of summary of where we're at with the lack of election integrity and how it's gotten worse over the last 6 years, and we're about to get hosed completely. And if you ever watch much Salty Nuts content, it was right in that zone. Like just bordering on black pill.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I mean, he's thinking, A, we're not going to fix 2020, and B, we're not going to fix 2024 either.
But he did say the one thing we have on our side is no one can really change time. If the people wake up fast enough and stop going to their events and stop feeding this beast, we could get a win there.
Yeah. Question is, what does fast enough mean?
Well, we're on a wave of waking up. So maybe,
I think so.
Yeah, what's the lambda that we need to reach, right?
Now we haven't we really haven't done much to actually fix election integrity, but it sure feels like that's coming in a big hurry with the Trump stuff.
Well, the Lindell presentation, which I missed, but Salty gave a short summary of it. He kind of was saying like it's been getting worse and eroded while we're all arguing about whatever, So that kind of caught me.
But
Lindell's,
didn't he have something that he was going to show?
He did that poll thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I haven't found it yet. I'll get back on it.
I heard some people, I didn't get to see it either, but I heard some people talking today about how they were kind of intimating that their patience was running thin with Mike Lindell, and they didn't really think that his methods produced much fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. He's been a lot of hype and all that, and he really hasn't amounted to anything. Everybody appreciates his effort, though. But as far as results, we haven't got much out of him. Hopefully that'll change.
You could say the same thing about let's Kraken the Kraken.
Yeah.
Sydney?
Yeah.
Except Sydney is going to be in court with Trump.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to that because, and argue with me if you want, but I really like Sydney. So I'm
absolutely in agreement with you, but this is the logic of many people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and I'm always hoping that when you hear that sort of dust-ups between Giuliani and her, that's just a show, because I want them to like each other. But it's okay if they don't.
I don't really remember if there were many dust-ups between those two, but I'll take your word for it. I do know
rumors.
I do know there has been a dust-up between Rudy and Jenna Ellis, but Jenna Ellis sounds kind of like a dirtbag.
Oh,
right. I'm more on Rudy's side there.
Yeah, me too.
But what is another interesting story plot? The plot thickens. Have you guys heard the RFK with Tucker where he was talking about Mike Pompeo?
No, I didn't hear that part.
Okay, so RFK said that about 3 weeks ago he had dinner with Mike Pompeo, and he had said 3 times that there were other people, but it's almost like he wanted to say who was there, but he didn't want to. But anyway, which made it even more so interesting. But also, he was talking about Mike Pompeo is like when we thought Mike Pompeo is a good guy and he was on Trump's side and whatnot, RFK made him out to be like the biggest CIA head bad guy, and he was telling Trump not to disclose the JFK assassination docs, and he didn't, like, he was basically saying that Mike Pompeo is a bad guy.
RFK was.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So because I like Owen Benjamin, I'm suspicious of RFK Jr., but I kind of agree with that. I'm a little suspicious of Pompeo also.
And I don't particularly care for Owen Benjamin, but I am in the same camp with regards to RFK Jr. for the sheer fact that he's an environmentalist, and I don't trust those people as far as I can throw them, especially since I've had to deal with those pukes for 40 years almost.
Sloan TV chats 37 million spent directly by Lindell, essentially, on the fraud. So that's a good point.
Do we know if that's all his own money? I know we assume so.
Or maybe he's proctored and kind of directed that much with a lot of, which maybe let's say a third is his. Kind of
anything.
Yeah.
It's just is he working in a vacuum, or does he
making tanks out of pillows? No, I'm just
Or
You know what that
is he
kinda
getting
sounds like?
assistance and guidance that we just don't know about.
Right. That's a good point. And then what Sloan's chat makes me remember is lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. Because Trump is bleeding money left and right on this stuff too. He's at least bleeding opportunity costs just by being president for 4 years.
Yeah, I've heard that Trump did pretty well the last couple of years since Biden.
Yeah, once he got back out.
So, yeah.
And he could direct his business, or his people could direct his business without, the IRS microscope up your butt.
Except that every other deep state microscope is up his butt now.
Right. Well, listen, are we watching the Dog King play? Is this thing going to flame out, or is he going to flip the tables? It's coming close.
I think he's got to flip the tables. Otherwise, everything we know is.
Or this was Operation Trust.
Yeah.
And
that's by the way, we kind of derailed Thaggy's discussion when we came in, and I didn't mean it to go that far out in the weeds. So
please stick to the subject.
No, I've already given up. You guys are so far out. I think we need to come back to it next week.
No, Thaggy, we just wanted to see how well you can handle this person.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
It's a hostile environment. Get used to it.
Well, I should point out that Salty comes on and says he wants to do a contest and have Black Yoda and Uncle Krusty and see who talks the most. And then I have to say, Salty did a good amount of talking, which I appreciate. But there was it was good.
We don't really lack for talkers in this community.
No, we talk. I imagine, what does your notepad look like, P. Thaggy? You always have notes, and I don't know if I remember seeing.
No. They're just called notes. They're what they are in reality are a bunch of tabs open on my browser.
Oh.
And then the rest of it is just kind of up in my upstairs. I'm just holding on to it.
Do you have any cats? Could they ruin your notes by walking on the wrong button?
No.
Okay.
No, don't like cats.
May we be fed another note by P. Thaggy?
Well, so it's more of amusing. I mean, I do have a dig, a pretty big one that came up tonight, and glad that Anka called in because we did this dig together. It's a little freaky, it's a little scary, but it ties back to something we had just discussed earlier in the book when it comes to child sacrifice. So to remind those who may not have been there at the time, when we covered the subject of the intended sacrifice of Isaac, I shared at the time that it wasn't even that uncommon for Semitic people to sacrifice their firstborn.
Right.
Which explains why there was no real reaction from Abraham, and he was just nodding and like, yep, okay. And the location, where are we going to do this? It's just, he was already with the plan.
He didn't really fight it very hard, did he?
No.
Did he? No.
Neither did Isaac, who was at least 13.
Yeah, neither did Isaac.
Or at least 8.
The one who,
at least 8.
Yeah, and I think it was closer to 13, but it was really the mother, Sarah, was the one who panicked, and they both kept it from her. They're like, no, don't worry, no, baby, we're just going on a trip. I got to take him up to his relative's house for his education.
Right.
Baby. She goes, well, what are all those sticks for? What's that big long knife for? Whoa.
Well, she might have said, hey, that's great Uncle Adam's knife.
Right. Or doesn't he live in the other direction?
Right. Right. No, but there's some who say that knife was passed down all the way from original Adam.
Nice.
Then it would have been like a flint knife or something, probably, right?
I'm thinking it would have been like 14 feet long and called a knife.
Right.
It was giant.
Yeah. Duppy, I think they may have had knowledge, maybe different types of technology than, I don't know what it would have looked like.
Oh, knife insert for knife, laser beam.
Right.
Okay.
But they don't.
From the space Egyptians.
They wouldn't want to use a laser beam because that would cauterize the wound, and it's all about the blood, isn't it?
Right.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, actually, it's not so much the blood. It's the fat. It is the blood, but I was reading this temple scroll, and it's really about the fat and also the stones that they erect, as in this chapter when they create these stone mounds. They stack stones, and apparently a lot of these stacks are still there. Many of them have animal fat all over them, and it causes them to rub and twist in weird formations over long periods of time. Right up your alley, Duppy. They're looking at the rubbing of the stones and weathering of the stones, but they can still see that they had animal fat smeared all over them.
Are you saying that they did so many sacrifices over such a long period of time that they wore the edges of the stones down?
Yeah, something like that. It's from a book I found on archive.org. It's one of those old 19th century books, the free Google books and archive. One of these scholarly articles about all the mounds that still stand in the Levant. So, yeah, they're smooth and rounded and had much animal fat. But I want to get... Oh, go ahead.
When I hear the term smooth and rounded applied to stones, I think of the symbolism of the Benben stone. But I don't know if that really applies here, other than, they always talk about these being high places, right? Which pretty much describes the concept of the Benben stone.
Right, and that's where heaven meets earth in the Jacob visions, at least that once.
Right.
Okay, so that's a good segue. Let me share what I found in one of these ye old dusty books. This book is called Archaeology and the Bible. It's from circa 1916, and it talks about high places and temples. So I'll paraphrase. One is these high places where pillars were erected, typically of stone and sometimes of wood. When they're made of wood, they're called asherims, but if they're made of stone, they're called pillars. And
is that the same thing as like an Asherah pole or whatever they called it?
Possibly.
I think probable.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, though. This is really fascinating. Because I saw a documentary on this, just happened to pop up in my feed. I don't know if Google is reading my thoughts, but you can still see some of these enclosures in Saudi Arabia. So there was one documentary, maybe people have even seen it. Duffy, maybe you've seen it. There's a documentary about Abraham traveling to Saudi Arabia, and they're saying that a lot of this stuff was they're looking. It's based on a book. They're looking for the historical Mount Sinai, and one hypothesis is that it's in Saudi Arabia. Well, if you go to that region, what they find is these rectilinear enclosures, which are described in this book from 1916. It's 30 feet on one side and 32 on the other. 32 on the north-south and 30 across east-west. And then they have a little asp, a little semicircle asp where the stones were erected.
Asp?
So those things are...
What's an asp or apse?
Oh, sorry, apse. An apse,
okay.
like in a church.
I gotcha. Yep.
Sorry. And an APSE. So then they basically are still there because of the desert climate. They're sort of untouched. These walls are still there. So it's amazing to hear his description of finding these in Palestine. But he says that they were ancient Canaanite places, high places of worship. And then you can see signs of Israelitish pottery. And you see the Israelis coming in and basically taking over these high places and using them for the same purposes.
Right.
And
who did they think were the people that constructed those before the Israelites got there?
Well, in this chapter, it just says that it was Canaanite which is one of the tribes in Palestine before the coming of Israel.
So they were technically in Canaan in the ancient world, but they're in present day Saudi Arabia, correct?
No, both. I'm saying this book is talking about how they're in Palestine.
Okay.
The documentary I saw that was connected to a book that says Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, they happen to in passing mention these stone perfectly rectilinear structures that are still sitting there. They look exactly the way this guy described.
I think I've seen something on those enclosures near, I think it's called Jebel Al Musa in Saudi Arabia, that they think is one of the candidates for Mount Sinai.
Exactly. So okay. I thought you would know it. Yeah, that is my reference. So so here's the segue. Since we're talking about high places and Beth El.
Right.
Well, this book, mind you, is called Archaeology in the Bible. What they found when they dug these high places were children's bones were typically deposited in the corners of these structures or at the base of the pillars.
Were those bones in pottery like they did in Carthage?
Yes. So I'll read you the line. It says, 2 of them displayed marks of fire, but most of them had simply been enclosed in large jars. The body was usually put in head first. 2 or 3 smaller vessels were put in with them, and they generally included a bowl and a jug. And sometimes the bodies were completely within the jar, and sometimes part of their bodies were found outside the jar.
Boy, that's pretty creepy. I think they've been trying to cover this kind of shit up, don't you?
Yeah. Well, but so, yeah, I mean, this is so this, stay with me. Now, that's just to underscore that child sacrifice was a common practice among ancient Canaanite people. Mm-hmm. It would not have been it would not even have sounded surprising for Yahweh to make this request of Abraham. And then we fast forward and we say, in this chapter, what the hell is a teraphim? What are teraphim? What are these little idols? Well, that's where it gets scary. So Anka and I were doing a dig, and she found a site where you can basically read...
They were frogs, weren't they?
So Anka, correct me if I'm wrong, we're reading this site, the Sefaria.org is the Talmud? Is it like an English translation of the Talmud?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idols are described, the teraphim are described as typically made of copper, and they're used for divination or for using them for telling the time of the day. Some people think they're connected to celestial motions, and they're like star maps or compasses, basically a compass. But then there's a really grim, dark description from another rabbi. And he says, this is Rachel stole the teraphim. What precisely are teraphim? According to Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, he describes that the deities that people like Laban worshipped were, he says, how did they originate? Quote, a firstborn male human being was slaughtered, the head was cut off, salted to preserve it from decomposing, using both salt and oil. They inscribed on the forehead of that slain person the name of a deity, such as a demon, hung it up under the tongue of the slain person on a wall, lit candles in its honor, prostrated themselves before it, and it would start speaking to the worshiper. Oh. This is one definition of a teraphim.
That's nasty.
You take your firstborn, you cut off its head, preserve it in oil and salt, and carve into its forehead the name of the deity you want to speak to, and it speaks to you. Provided you light the candles and have true, authentic reverence for this God. It will visit you. Oh, man. Oh, man. Ooh, if Black Yoda was here, he would say, ooh, wee. Ooh, wee.
Hey, Thaggy, can I back up a little bit? You talked about those rectilinear enclosures, right?
Yeah.
And you said they were generally 30 by 32 feet.
Yeah.
Is there any significance to those dimensions that you came across?
Is that a question or an
Yeah.
answer?
No, I don't know.
Oh no. I thought about it. I thought if there was, but I couldn't. I couldn't think of anything.
Okay, now here's the punchline to this. Do those enclosures, those rectilinear enclosures, in any way resemble that weird tennis court thing on Epstein's Island? Because that was rectilinear also.
Wow.
Do you know the dimensions?
I don't.
I think it was bigger because it looked more like a soccer field, and 30 feet by 32 is smaller. It's more like a tennis court.
That's why I asked the question about, is there anything about 30 by 32 as a ratio that would be significant? So, maybe Epstein just scaled it up or something like that.
Oh, who knows? Good of you to remind us, though. Yeah, I completely forgot about that weird pit, sacrificial Hunger Game pit that they had.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Just something that popped into my head right after you first mentioned it.
Well, if you take your calculator out and you take 32 divided by 30, you get 1.066666666666, etc.
Nice.
Let's see. You could also just reduce it, and you've got what?
The point is, it encodes the 2/3 or the 1/3 fallen. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anything that would be kind of a ratio divisible by 3 would lead you there.
Right. So 32 and 30 kind of has that.
Half of 32, 16, and so it'd be 15 by 16. Can't reduce it more than that.
No,
I don't know. Weirdness.
What would be the numbers representing an alphabet? Let's say 30. What would that be?
It's a long alphabet.
Which alphabet?
No, but you know how they do gematria thingy? I don't know about a lot of that, but they do like gematria. Don't know about it. But like how one letter represents.
You need to ask TN that question. He's a gematria guy. I'm not a big fan of gematria because of the times that I've looked into it. It kind of looks like you get out of it whatever you kind of want. That you're like faced with 100 different choices, and you can pick whichever one fits your preconceived notion the best. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm now fully convinced that a teraphim is a headhunted shrunken head thing.
Oh, okay. And you see that even in other cultures. Yeah, like you said, shrunken heads. So that's pretty freaky, right? That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the etymology of the word teraphim. It's connected. The root word is connected to the word weak, and some people suppose it was based on the word weak because often their soothsaying, their predictions were false. They always mislead you, like a demon would. And so,
but isn't that a guarantee of being right when a prediction goes wrong?
Right.
It's kind of like saying, I think the stock market's going to go up tomorrow, and then when it goes down, you say, "Oh, well, that was a demon that told me."
Right.
Oh no. I thought you meant like an irony, a true irony.
Well, no, it's almost like I'm thinking it's kind of like you can never be wrong about your predictions, because then you just say that it was a demon that told me instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, well,
casting blame.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But
the devil made me do it.
But with predicting the future, with divination, you get more frequently you get in the ancient Greek stories and in Shakespeare, you get what's called irony. They make a prediction and then it comes true, but not in the way that you expected it. It comes out completely different and usually to your demise. But technically it was true. So they'll say, "Oh, a king will fall today." You're anxious about tomorrow's battle, and you ask the oracle, "Will I persevere?" And then the oracle says, "A king will fall tomorrow. A new kingdom will arise." And you're like, "Yes, this is sweet. I'm gonna fucking."
There's
kill it."
actually that.
But then you end up getting cornered, and you throw yourself on your sword.
That's
the original.
That gets killed.
What you just described is actually a pretty famous story from the ancient world, but I don't remember who it referred to. But
Well,
I've
So
run
the
across
original-
exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
The prediction
A
that
king
the
will fall
serpent,
tomorrow.
yeah, the serpent predicted in the garden that you'd become like God. That was technically true. They gained the knowledge of good and evil. It was just unpleasant. So it's got that irony.
Yeah. So yeah,
Sorry,
I'm just
Evan.
reminding people that
Be careful what you wish for.
well, guess what? That divination is all about irony. The diviner never gives you the clear answer. Never.
Right.
So let me sales pitch this. This
Go
is
ahead.
dangerous. I think the Isaac replaced by a ram stuck in the bushes is an event, a marker where it solidifies Abraham peeling off and updating the religion of his dad. Especially if his dad was in the business of making this type of teraphim that we're talking about.
I can
'Cause-
agree with that.
Well, we don't know because
No, but let me
Abraham
give
was
the sales
called.
pitch.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, we do know from a few sources that his dad was making idols. Terra was
yeah.
he was in the idol making business. Yeah, I don't know if
He
they were
was
household
the-
idols. Yeah,
He was the chief priest, wasn't he?
right.
In some accounts, he was like the Book of Jasper. He was the chief priest.
Or he might have been the client king / governor of Urkesh,
Yeah.
Or both.
or both.
Either way, he was a heathen.
So if Jacob, who's only 2 generations later, is like, no. He's like, he's having his getting to know you conversations with Rachel, and he's like, you need to know this about me. We ain't doing these teraphims with your firstborn male, just so you know. And he tells her all the great stories of what's been happening in Canaan when he comes back to Haran, because that's where he's stuck for 20 years with her. Now, he's busy going back and forth, sometimes living with Leah, sometimes living with Rachel. This is horrible what I'm about to say. Did Rachel have a firstborn that he never heard about?
With a different father, you mean?
No, with him. And was that the idol she snuck out with?
No, because actually the idols that are mentioned in this chapter belonged to Laban says that they belong to his grandfather, and they're
so that could
they're
be
heirlooms.
okay.
They're heirlooms.
All right.
Yeah, like you said, they're passed on.
Quick
All right,
question.
fair
You
enough.
said that those heirlooms were made of copper as opposed to, say, bronze.
As opposed to, say, flesh.
Well, I'm just curious if the Bronze Age started about 3000 BC, which predates all of these people. If it was copper rather than bronze, could these things have been far older than these people that we're talking about? I'm just throwing that up in the air. I don't know.
Well, let me try to round out the point here.
Yeah.
I'm just reading what the Talmud says, but if we put aside the freaky Chucky doll thing with the shrunken head divination, let's rather assume that it's some kind of a copper tool, like an astrolabe. It's got celestial events, and it can maybe tell you the direction. Well, most of these rabbis agree that the reason we have to ask ourselves, why did she steal them? Did she want to worship them? Were they her little Barbie dolls? No. Most of them agree that she stole them so that the father Laban could not use it to discover where they were going. Whether it was a compass or a diviner, it was in some way capable of telling him where they had gone, and she didn't want that.
That's interesting.
Yesterday's cell phone.
Yeah.
Right.
A GPS. Yeah, whatever.
That's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
But then God showed him where they went so they could have their thing.
Well, I don't know if God told them where they were, but he found them in some texts it says in 7 days he finally tracked them down, and then they had words.
Yeah.
Now, when they had words, the way I heard it, and I could be wrong, but the way I heard it, building this stack, building another mound, it sounded like that was Laban's idea. That wasn't Jacob's idea, was it?
I agree. That's how I read it.
Yeah, it was Laban's idea. So Laban said, don't you be thinking that you can take other wives behind my daughter's back. Don't you be thinking you can ever come back here with malice or deceit in your heart and just try to do something to me. He's like, we're gonna build this stack so that your God can watch you, or no, my God can watch you, and your God can watch me, kind of thing. This crisscrossing. Each of our gods will be perched upon this stack, this pillar, and their ever watchful eyes will look down upon us both to ensure that whatever deceit you have in your heart will be known, and you're not going to get away with it. Which means these guys really distrust each other. Remember, when he was on his way up to Haran, on his path up, when he had the vision of the stairway to heaven,
right?
He refused to dwell with these people. Josephus says that he hated these people, didn't trust them, and would rather sleep outside and put his head on a rock than take shelter with them.
Agreed.
So he goes back to a place where he hates the people, distrusts them, takes his first cousin as a wife, and then his two first cousins, and then when he tries to slip away in the night, the overreaching Laban comes and pursues them and says, "This stuff is still all mine. All of this stuff is mine." Oh, and then anyway, so you know the story. These guys still clearly distrust each other. This is not a very close family.
You bring up a really good point, but there's a moment of growing up that happens right in this scene that you helped me just catch. You know, Jacob is a girly man. He's mama's boy. He just comes of age during the idol search. He finally is like, man, this guy's pissing me off. And he just straight up stands up to him finally. And that's when Laban goes, all right, we'll have a treaty. Like, he didn't consider him a threat until right then.
But you know how old he was when he made the threat? He was 77. He was 77 years old.
Yeah. But it took him that long to grow up.
Yeah.
Is it
Night, Two Rivers.
Good night, Two Rivers.
Good night. Is it possible to consider all of these people to be the nobility of their day?
For sure.
Because, you know, all the stuff I've looked into, these nobility families could never really trust each other. They were always usurping, murdering, attacking each other all the time.
When we get to David and Absalom, we're going to see it again.
Therefore, they don't trust each other.
Right. Yeah, Solomon or David gives the kingdom to Solomon. That's like the first sort of smooth transition, and then the very next one is a mess. Civil War.
Exactly. And that went on all the way through almost modern times with these people, from what I've seen.
I mean, I really think that Inky Enlil, sort of like the X-Files model, where there's kind of multiple kinds of secret agents and aliens. The ones that there's really two choices. If you meet a space alien, it either wants to kill and eat you, or it wants to treat you like a pet and probably be nice to you.
Well, according to Simon Parks, some of them want to boink you as well.
He wishes.
I mean, I really do want to respect God's chosen people, but they act extremely similar to the other crazy nobility. Is that fair?
I want to raise a couple other musings you just reminded me of, and I think Duffy can help us answer the question. In this passage, Jacob goes to his native land to find some, we'll call it a woman of good stock. I don't know how you would say it.
I would say that a woman of good stock implies a cousin.
Well, clearly. But this is what he does. And then we're told that when they build this pillar, it says verse 47. Laban named the place Yegar Sahaduta. Yegar Saduta, whatever. And then Jacob says, no, it's called Gilead, by the way, just Gilead. So in the Aramaic is this huge other word that has nothing, that's not even a cognate with Gilead. But what struck me is I'm thinking, he goes back to see family, and it's called this thing in Aramaic, but it's called this other thing in Hebrew. So either they're not speaking the same language, or this story was being written hundreds of years later, way after the Hebrew language had evolved on its own. And the author is telling you how to say it in Hebrew.
Right.
I would argue the latter on that from what I've seen.
Okay, so it's not like Abraham's household kind of created its own language. We're saying that the story was retold so much later that they was written in Hebrew, but the characters in the story were actually speaking a different language.
And one thing that you run into a lot is even in the same languages, so much time has gone by between when these stories are first told and when they're finally written down, that the place names have changed, even within the same language, to where hundreds of years later, they write down the current day name of that place, which very often is not anywhere near the same name that it was back when the events actually occurred. A perfect example of that is Pi Ramses in the Nile Delta. At the time of the Hyksos, that was called Avaris. But years later, when events got written down about that area, it had already been renamed by Ramses the Great to Pi Ramses, so they used that name.
Yeah, you know what? That does happen even in the secular world.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like the Greek cities, Thebes and Corinth, they could have originally been in different places that were buried under 400 meters of seawater, and then you have a new Corinth. It's kind of like we say York and New York. The Corinth and the Argos that we're thinking of today are really New Argos and New Corinth.
Right.
Fair.
It happens a lot.
I'm just so glad nobody renamed any city, any blue run city into George Floyd Town or anything like that.
Well, it's not too late for that to happen.
Could still happen, yeah. Stacey Abramton.
I sent Belushi an article yesterday. I don't think he responded to it, but there was an article in Gateway Pundit yesterday about some fair that they had in Minneapolis where they summoned a demon and it was open to all ages.
Oh my
Just
God.
sick
What the
stuff.
hell is this?
This is in Minneapolis.
No, I mean, how many normal people will go to that? That
There's
sounds
a-
like a fun
yeah.
party.
Right.
Yeah, we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah. P. Thaggy. Any other
No, that's
tabs
pretty
open?
much it. No, I mean, I got through it. That was pretty much it. I've been waiting
That's
a long
fantastic.
time to
I
get to this
demand
chapter.
reimbursement for Yoda. You gotta do better than this.
Well, see, here's the thing. The only other thing I can think of is we got to start putting notes side by side. We have a couple of themes. We have gene editing ?
Yeah.
We have deceit. Everyone's deceiving everyone else. No one trusts anyone else. We're all accusing each other of stealing and thieving when in fact I'm thriving and I'm laboring and I'm right where you can see me and I haven't stolen anything. So you have like this distrust, deceit. You have breeding. You have you have a few main topics, a few main trunks.
Yeah.
Maybe these are branches of the same tree, or maybe these trees kind of grow into one hobbled mess. I don't know.
So much time has passed, and I feel like in 2023 nothing has changed from what you just described.
That's a good point.
Not for those families.
Well, and they run us, so not for us either.
And the sheep.
Yeah. So I've got a question that's been nagging me for a long time, and I'm just looking for if anybody has heard or thought differently. And that is the reason that this sacrifice of the firstborn even became a thing. The only thing that I've ever been able to come to grips with is that it's a gesture to the God of complete devotion because I am going to sacrifice the most valuable thing to me, to my God. So therefore, the odds of that God recognizing the significance of that sacrifice means that my wishes, I guess, are more likely to come true. Is there anything anybody has seen other than that could explain how that custom came to be?
Oh, other than that, no.
Other than
that, it is exactly that, and it is Baal worship. I've got a tab on that too.
Yeah.
But
I think
you
the
know
Gnostics.
what they say? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Gonna make one little tiny thing.
For sure.
There is a saying: the first pancake is lumpy. Maybe the firstborn is not all that cracked out to be.
Well, marrying cousins.
Well, maybe you might be onto something.
It doesn't explain why John Kerry is still here, though.
Right.
So here's the one thing, Duffy, that I was thinking about this tonight too, because when you make these sacrifices, whether it's a ram or your firstborn, the god Baal, I think you know this, the god Baal, he represents the sun.
Yep.
And the Canaanite people were sacrificing their children to Baal to have, so that the sun would rise and they would have a good harvest, and the sun would never abandon them. What struck me was that they were doing the exact same thing in Mesoamerica.
Mm-hmm.
With the even though it had a different flavor, they wanted virgins and stuff, but it was to the sun god in order to ensure a good harvest, a bumper crop, that they wouldn't face starvation.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, imagine you're part of some ancient civilization and you're sitting around going, gee, I need to pick a god that's going to be the most important one to my life. And you look up in the heavens, it's pretty obvious what they would pick, right?
Yeah.
Be the sun. And I found that thread of sun worship running through everything. It's just kind of disguised a little bit in places. Some places it's obvious, others it's not.
And
Could it?
and to answer your question though, like we've covered this in the earlier chapters about firstborn, was that the sacrifice that, or we'll call them offerings, that Cain and Abel presented to the Lord, didn't Cain offer his firstborn, the livestock, the very firstborn?
I thought, yeah,
Of
Cain
his
did, yeah,
livestock.
or Abel did. Abel did. I think Cain just offered grains.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay, so other
Yeah,
way
that's
around.
right.
Yeah.
Cain, yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive. Cain
Yahweh's
offered
bloodthirsty.
like the fruits of his field, and
Right.
so the story's basically saying that in the eyes of a god, a flesh and blood sacrifice is more valuable
Right.
than a fruits of the field sacrifice, so to speak.
Well, there's some logic to that, because like a cow has eaten a lot of those fruits. So the cow represents, one cow is 10 times of, Cain's gatherings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I could even throw a possible deeper meaning to that, although it's hard to imagine these people would know it at the time. But anthropologists have determined, and most of them I think agree, that the reason that humanity developed big brains, now we're talking just a purely evolutionary model, was because when primitive man adopted eating meat,
cooking their meat,
not necessarily cooking, as I recall, but it's, although maybe there's an angle.
I remember an article. Yeah, I remember an article came out more than 10 years ago, which said that it was the advent of cooking the meat that actually added the cerebral layer to the proto-human's brain.
That could be. I just don't remember that part. But the point I was going to make was just consuming meat, because of the energy density in it compared to eating fruits and vegetables or whatever, that assisted in us developing big brains. We didn't have to spend as much time working in the fields, and we could sit and ponder the stars and think and debate and whatnot.
Well, also, just as an aside, to belittle the point, if you're God and you're offered, if one twin says, God, I offer you crudité, here's some delicious crudité, and the other was like, do you want a big, fat, juicy burger?
Right.
Yeah. But the thought I had was that you could, from that anthropological thing, you could make an argument that an offering of meat was far more valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Took more work.
And to add a corollary to that, I got in a discussion with somebody the other day about this, because they were talking about the advent and urging of veganism. And is that a throwback to this meat argument, because they want to dumb us down, so they want everybody to be vegans?
I strongly think that. When I went to Egypt and ate peasant food like kushri, which is, like rice and beans, I felt like, and maybe I was imagining it, but it's just Pharaoh's like, let them have the grains. I want the meat for myself. I think that pattern is still there today. And you're right. You're not going to be able to think as deeply and reason your way up the chain if you're busy just only eating wheat.
Yeah.
I really think that.
But it's hard for me to imagine that, 3,000 years ago that they recognized that, but perhaps they did. I just don't know.
They didn't have as much TikTok distracting them as we do.
That's for sure.
So, team, it's football season. I got to get up in 4.5 hours. So I would love to, for the next 10, 11 weeks, keep it slightly shorter.
Yeah.
And we can help you do that. We can definitely do our part. Yes.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I
We
want to hit
support
all the
you in
topics, but yeah. But yeah, if we.
So how come
if
Yoda wasn't here tonight?
He sent me an alert early in the day that he had full on just needed cable company to come visit and give him the whole new router, new everything, and that should be done by the end of the day or by tomorrow or something. He couldn't make tonight. He was going to try cell phone, but he's been using so much cell phone with his internet outage that he didn't really have good cell phone access for this particular day of this particular month.
And I'm curious what brought Salty in here tonight. Has he
Random.
been watching this show, or is it just completely random?
It seemed random. I think he just walked in, saw a call-in number, and said, "I'll call." I don't even know when he got here.
Okay.
You never know. Could have been a lurker the whole time.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, you never know who's listening.
No, this was a flat Earth convention.
Earth is flat.
Actually, I talked to Salty for the very first time Monday morning, and it was because he had Krusty on, and I was in the chat, and I think Krusty was like, "You need to get in here." And guess what they were talking about? Flat Earth.
Daria is up next.
No.
But wait, is Mars flat? Is Jupiter? Is Saturn flat?
Earth is not the same category of object as those wandering stars.
Sorry.
No, I'm having a blast. Good topic. All
You
of
guys
them.
are awesome.
Throw them all in one pot. Let's mix.
All right. Well, 144 wants to go to bed.
Okay.
Thanks for
Needs
having
to.
us.
Yeah,
I
guys,
just
thanks
came
for-
to
Yeah,
annoy the
thanks,
rest
guys.
of the guys. I love you,
Yeah.
G-Russ.
Anybody got any things coming up to promote? Duppy, you going to be on the Thursday, the usual?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's
I'm trying to get Reverend Rant in that show too. He was
okay.
like, they don't have because he was on there once, and he was like, well, they haven't invited me back, and I was like, okay, I'll get you an invite if I can.
So that's tomorrow on what's the name of that? It's the thing Belushi started, handed over, and took back.
Yeah, Belushi, I think, is going out of town, so it's going to be back on Pete's channel just for tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So Pete's channel tomorrow, and then Belushi's on Friday, or we don't know.
I don't know. I'm if you're talking about the stuff I was showing,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay.
Is it? Yeah, I was gonna say, is it new stuff? Are we doing Pacers
Well,
now? What's the subject?
Well, I did do. No, I don't do Pacers.
You couldn't. Oh my god.
I
Come
did
on.
do that.
Just having a little fun. Just having a little fun.
You couldn't let it go.
Thaggy, did you know that I did do a new show on Pete's channel last week and the week before, I think, or something like that, on the East India Company?
Oh, yeah, I did hear. I do see you once in a while. I'll see you. I don't know. What'd you go? What was the main thread? I mean, I guess I'll have to go back and watch it.
Well, it was basically, I got to a point where I realized that I needed to do a little bit more on including investigation on the Cavendish East India Company connections. You know, in the past, I just said, yeah, look, this guy was
co-signer, co-signature.
Yeah, and I knew that he was probably a major investor, or probably the major investor, and I would just say that, and that was it. Well, I decided that I should probably do better than that, so I put together a show where I really dug, and I was kind of surprised. The not only was he a major investor, but his relatives helped set the stage for the East India Company to exist in the first place.
Okay, well, now you got my attention. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
Well, it's I did that on Pete's channel. He probably still has those archived, but I'm also going to be giving it again on Reverend Rant's channel. I think next week, Monday and Wednesday afternoons.
Oh, that's cool. You should watch that. That's very
okay. I'll catch it. I'll catch it the second time.
Great platform.
Oh,
we lost.
Pete Thaggy just disappeared.
Thaggy.
Oh, he presses buttons all the time.
Yep.
Let me. I have one thing I've got to promote. I'd love to tell you two about it. Friday at 6:30 p.m. right after the stuff with Mr. Anderson, formerly known as Angular.
96.
We'll do a interview chit chat with Java over here on my channel.
Oh, Java is very cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I went ahead and warned him some of the horrible questions I'm going to ask. Impossible to answer questions.
Is there a topic or is it just random?
There's about. So if you caught, he had me over on his channel, and we covered all the weird UAP news. So we'll do part 2 of that. And we don't go as woo as you might think, but we kind of go through it and survey it. And then I'm going to ask him a couple music questions because I think his music awareness is recorded, distributed, labeled music is just sky high. And a couple other, like he ever so slightly touched on some of his philosophy when I was throwing some of my weird worldviews at him. And so I'll probe into that just a little bit. So it'll basically be part 2 of what we started last week over on his channel.
Sounds interesting.
Cool.
We did 3 hours last time.
I saw an article 2 days ago about, you remember the guy that Grunch or whatever that testified in Congress about the UAPs?
Yeah.
Gosh.
That kind of a youngish guy, I think. But the guy that sat in front of Congress talking about the UAPs and being evasive. This article said that they looked into his background and he's got a serious history of mental illness.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was pretty funny.
That's crazy. Nothing surprises me anymore. When they stole my, when my sister-in-law's luggage was lost, I was like, well, wouldn't it be fun if Sam Britton or whatever the guy's name is wearing your clothes?
He took your luggage.
Yeah, he took your luggage. She was like,
you know, you should send a picture of him to her and just say,
she's
hey, I think we found your luggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but she's actually seen him. Like
in person?
She knew who I was referring to.
Oh, you already said that to her then.
Yeah, so I was surprised she knew what I was talking about. That's a step up.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't even live here in this country and she heard about him.
Yeah, very interesting.
All right.
All right, well, let's let G-Ross go.
Let my peoples go.
Right on. You guys are awesome. And I'll do chapter 32 next week.
All right. Well, everybody have a good evening, and maybe I'll see some of you people tomorrow night.
Yay.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Love you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
All right, Foxhole team. Let's do a couple things here to get out the door. let's first of all do that. Somehow we lost Pete Thaggy. I sound. Oh, Google phone. Good night, Pete Thaggy. Thanks for swinging by, Salty Nuts. Let me turn on the. What's going on here? There are some gold pills to release. They have been released. I've pushed the button. Just closing some windows. You know, there comes that point in time where you just got to close some windows. And that was that point in time. So let me say it again. Friday at 5:30 p.m. G. Ross channel will have the Bread Pill Weekly with Mr. Anderson. And at 6:30 we'll roll into Chit Chat interview with friend Java. So make sure you're here to see it. 6:30 Friday, Texas time. 5:30 for the news, 6:30 for Java. And then on Sunday we'll do Armor Up with Sloan TV and Rev. And then back here for Chapter 32, we anticipate Black Yoda will be back in the co-hosting role. And thanks to the callers, Pete Aggie, Akavanka, Mod Extraordinaire, Duppy, Salty Nuts. And when I break down the green screen, I'm going to go visit. Did anyone scratch? Anyone scratch the scratching? Scratch the scratching. I'm not leaving until there's a scratch. While breaking down the green screen, I'm going to go say hi to Sneezer and Sloan TV chat. How's that for? We should say hi to everyone, but at least those. All right, I'm going to scratch the scratch so you can see it can be done. There we go. Prairie Fire got a scratch. And with that, I bid you all adieu and say, love you all. Thank you for spending time with us. We're joined on Fridays by co-host Angular. This has been G. Ross, and you are the underscore. Be sure to catch us on the foxhole.app, DLive, YouTube, or Facebook. Current shows include the Bread Pill Weekly. You've been red pilled, now be the red pill. You're out of the oven and ready for delivery on our weekly alternative news roundup and call-in show on Foxhole, DLive, YouTube, and Facebook every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Central, co-hosted by G. Ross and Angular. Current shows include Epistemology for Fun and Profit, where woo meets goo. You're in the woo, and the woo is in you. A philosophical call-in show with occasional guest interviews, diving into the oldest questions. Most episodes are exclusively on the foxhole.app, Sunday at 11:30 p.m. Central. Current shows include 9dNation, the nation with no denomination. Declare to the custom agents any edible plants or miscellaneous worldviews. We take a look back at how we got here, eventually leading into a regular Wednesday night Bible study at 11 p.m. Central. Catch us on the foxhole.app, DLive, YouTube, and Facebook. Our Friday co-host is Angular. This has been G. Ross, and you are the underscore.